Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the weekly show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Frank, good morning. I saw on Twitter or X that you will be joining us from the road today. Feel like you're trying to copy Joe, so maybe we should invite you into the show. We can have two guys hanging out down by the river. But Charleston, West Virginia, Frank, I was just there a couple of weeks ago, so enjoy that community. Wonderful people down there. So blessings and thank you for making the effort. Notice I'm flying solo this morning. I won't be for long though, because Joe is probably driving as fast as he can. And who knows, maybe even had to have his vehicle towed to the river this morning. But he'll be joining us here in a few minutes. He's run a little late, but this is what I admire about Joe. You know, it's family first. Always family comes first. So he had a little commitment with his daughter this morning, but he will be joining us shortly. Carolyn, thank you for joining us all the way from California. Blessings to you for coming on so early. We really appreciate it. And Josh Tovar, again, you're probably on a treadmill or some sort of elliptical or something like that, trying to do 10 things at the same time. Yep, greetings from the gym. There you go. I knew it. So, hey, listen, everyone, while we're waiting for Joe, and if not, you know, who knows? Joe may not even make it. And if he doesn't, well, NASSP, NAESP, it is coming to us this July. Don't know if you have any plans, but we would love to see you there. I know Joe and I will be presenting together. That's always a lot of fun for us, so we're looking forward to that. We'll also be doing our own little individual sessions. But for those of you who may be going, we are looking forward to it in Nashville, Tennessee, my friends, July 14th to the 17th. If you haven't registered, we'd encourage you to do so. Invite your colleagues to come along as well. And if you're not currently a member of NASSP or NAESP, we would also encourage you to perhaps join the membership as well. Those individuals at NASSP and NASP have been wonderful to me over my career. I am super blessed to still feel that I'm connected with them and still have a relationship with them. And I think that says a lot about these individuals, right? Even though I'm not currently a practitioner, they continue to treat me as though I'm still part of the family. So I'll always be grateful for them. So having said that, let's see, what are we going to talk about today? So Joe has no idea what we're talking about today. So why don't we create our own topic to talk about this morning? So I was thinking about it actually 30 seconds before the show started, what we should be talking about today. And here's what I was thinking about. I'm wondering if we should not discuss the topic, and here's the theme to today, and see what you guys think. But I'm going to call it a soft place to land. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, a soft place to land is, how do we create a culture and environment where we create a soft place for people to land at? Because as we know, this job can be challenging, obviously. The emotional toll that this job takes on us sometimes can be exhausting. And obviously, many times, I think we do feel a little beaten down. And quite frankly, I'm sure there are days that we begin to question whether or not, you know, we can still make a difference in this job. So today I want to really focus on, how do we help people find a soft place to land? There is a lot, in my opinion, I'm going to use this word. I think there's still a lot of jealousy in our profession. I think sometimes we don't do a very good job of helping one another get to where we want to get to. When I look at cultures and organizations today and the morale is not where it needs to be, sometimes it's because, well, quite frankly, there is a little bit us versus them. Sometimes that is parents and students versus teachers in the school system, right? We know this today. We see it all the time. Social media. We see it at board meetings. We see it by the types of emails that people are receiving that sometimes seem a little personal, sometimes attacking. And it would be nice if, you know, sometimes we remember, for those of us who are parents and have children in school, is that it's important that we also try really hard to help our teachers find a soft place to land. We also know that administrators take a lot of criticism. I think we live in a hypercritical world, probably more critical than we've ever lived in. And I always say, when I first started my career, I could make mistakes. I would get a few mulligans, right? Maybe allow people to allow me to make mistakes. But that is a lot different today. In today's day and age, everyone feels like they're one decision away or one interaction away from someone coming after them. And it's depressing and it's sad. And it's, I don't even know the word, but I know the fact that when people make it so personal that they almost forget that these principals and assistant principals, you know, they have families too. They have children. And quite frankly, they are the son or daughter of somebody. And yet I think we forget that sometimes when the community goes after people in such a harsh way, in such a mean way, that it's just not only discouraging, but quite frankly, it's just, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. It's just, it's disappointing to the maximum level. And again, I would encourage all of us, whether we're outside the school system and even within the school system, is that we help people find a soft place to land. Teachers, remember, I've never met a principal who didn't want to be great for their staff, but I met a lot of people who kind of forget that sometimes. And I know this, that your principals, teachers, are never going to be great unless we want them to be great. There is no way that one individual can run a school all by themselves. Although I see a lot of principals who try. And I believe the reason they try is because, number one, I do believe they see themselves as servant leaders. I think they see themselves as someone who feels responsible for the culture and climate and the success and, quite frankly, the safety of their children and their staff. I think I see leaders who care so darn much that they're willing to do whatever it takes to create an environment that is awesome for their people. And yet we still live in a society today, and as educators today, I still feel right now we are at a critical stage where people love to hate on educators. We see this across the country continuously. And so if you're one of those individuals, educators, leaders, school leaders who are feeling that way, that's why I love that we have this group that comes together. I hope that you know that Joe and I will always be available for you. So we hope that you will not hesitate to reach out if we can lend an ear or just listen, or maybe even help you walk through a situation. So I hope you never hesitate to reach out, because you aren't alone and you will never be alone. And the reason that it is as well, because, Joe and I, hell, we don't even have a real job. So, just reach out whenever you want to. We promise we'll always be there for you. But seriously, this is such an isolating profession that I hope you realize that there are people out there that you can reach out to. And I encourage you to continue to network and connect with those individuals, especially those who do the same work you do. This profession obviously is very isolating, and we need to be sometimes responsible for ourselves to make our own connections. We can't wait for people to come connect with us, especially in this day and age. I think it's pretty easy to reach out to people to connect with them. So again, I'm just going to encourage you to continue to do your very best to remember that there are people out there who appreciate what you do. You may not always hear from them, but I promise you they do. And so just hang in there. But again, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. For our teachers, I think we have to remember as well, leaders, that they do the very best they can as well. I know, especially at this time of the year, we're looking at, perhaps how we manage staffing. I know some of us are feeling the pressure because of budgets. I spoke to a couple principals this week who are going through some massive budget cuts. That's never easy. Those are decisions that are difficult because emotionally they tear us up, because we care about our people and we don't want to lose our people. So anyway, just encourage you to remember to reach out and remember that people, in my opinion, want to be great at what they do, and we need to continue to support them. And yes, sometimes it requires us to have conversations with people who are struggling in their profession, perhaps underperforming, perhaps have lost their way. But again, this is why relationships are so important. So anyway, that's just me having a little monologue before we get started, because now, my friends, let me welcome back the one and only Mr. Joe Sanfilippo. Joe, already I can see you're in a mood. Tell me what happened this morning, buddy. Why, Joe, are you just now joining us? I need to hear this, and I need to hear it now.
Jimmy,
your microphone even working? I hope it is, because if it isn't working, this is gonna be hilarious.
Jimmy,
oh, it's working.
I just need you to understand something right now, Jimmy. I just need you to understand something right now. You can do anything that you want to plan, get ready, make sure everything's set to go, and then one thing happens and it all hits the fan at one time. Jimmy, again, where do you think I am? Of course I'm in a parking lot. Of course I'm in a school parking lot. Of course I'm in the back of the school parking lot. Of course there are about half of the parking lot is filled with cars. We both know what's going to happen, Jimmy. We both know it's going to happen. I drive far enough out to get some reception, can't get reception, finally get reception, find a school, half the parking lot's filled. You know that by the time this is done, that place is going to be filled. Look, they're already coming in, Jimmy. They're already coming in. I don't even understand. At some point, I just need to I'm going to buy a mobile home. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying like an RV. It's going to be the Weekly Show RV. I'm going to brand it so we can write it off on the taxes, and I'm just going to park it, and I'm going to do the show from there. That's what we're doing from now on. I've decided. Jimmy, I've decided.
Joe, I love it. The Weekly Show on wheels. I love it, Joe.
Oh, Jimmy!
Just like that.
That's the greatest thing you've ever said.
Oh, the Weekly Show. Look, Travis Bloom, the 1 Minute Winnebago. I like that one. Hey, let's start throwing some names in here this morning, what the new brand could be for next year, Joe. We got the 1 Minute Winnebago. We got the Weekly Show on wheels. Is there anything else that people want to throw out that we can rebrand our show?
Oh, man. I was all set. And I texted you. I'm like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I didn't make it. I didn't make it.
It's okay, Joe. It's okay. Don't worry about that.
Oh,
what'd Frank say? Bring in the juice. Probably don't want to name it that. But anyway, let's see where else can we go.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, we're good. We're all good. Man. It's been a week, and man, I'm excited to talk to you. It's funny because we do the show so we can talk, and at the same time, we'll text back and forth. We never get to talk, so this is a great opportunity just to sit down and talk a little bit, and hopefully go. Are you at home?
I'm actually at home. I'm leaving Monday morning, but I'm home. I'll be gone all week, but I'm home today, so it's good. So you know what I feel bad about, Joe? It was beautiful this week.
Probably nothing. I've seen your days.
Yeah, windy, rainy, but I'm not going to complain. There's a little bit of sunshine today, but I feel badly for you because it is April 13th. Monday is April 15th, so we don't want to talk about that. That would be called tax season. However, you are wearing a stocking cap still.
Listen. I'm going to tell you what it's 36 right now.
Oh my God! I just want to throw up when you say that. Yuck, Joe. It's time for you to move. You need to get.
I know. I couldn't agree more. Well, I'd go tomorrow, but apparently Allie likes school, man. You know, here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of schools, but I'm a cricket. I know. So am I. But we can be a cricket, virtually maybe something. Get me south. I'm telling you. Anyway, so it's I heard you coming in talking about conversations, and if when people start to lose their way a little bit and making sure that you can help them in some capacity. It did give me thinking about some of the conversations that I had this week. And it was funny because I was having conversations with people either online or connections that we were making, and they were awesome, but you could just tell that people get bogged down. And I kept thinking to myself, what's the best way to talk to people about the idea that a lot of the stuff that they're getting bogged down with or believe that they're getting bogged down with, they don't have a tremendous amount of control over. So now we're spending a lot of time feeling a lot of stress and anxiety about things that we can't control. And then that gets in the way of things that we can. And so I was trying to help people through that, in that when you can control what you can control in terms of the stress and anxiety that you have, it doesn't eliminate the stuff that you can't control that's causing you anxiety and stress, but at least it puts you in a position where you can see movement with the things that you can control. And I think a lot of people are having a hard time with that because it turns into conversations about, well, if they just knew and understood. Well, yeah, I understand that. If who needs to hear this presentation? This group needs to hear this presentation, or that group needs to hear this presentation, or you should call this person or that person. They need to hear what you have to say. And it's great. I understand that. And I love that. And I love that the message that it resonates with people. But a lot of this stuff is out of their control. So when we can think about what can we control and get some momentum with things that we have a direct impact on, I think we're going to feel better. I know we're going to feel better, but we got to figure out a way to concentrate on what that looks like.
Yeah, Joe, we were talking even right a little bit before that. I had shared with folks that how do we help people find a soft place to land? When people are struggling, right? Or even when people are not struggling. I'll give you an example here why I kind of had thought about this topic here this morning before we got started. But Joe, what you're talking about again, right? It's like what individually can we do, right? So when
Right.
I think about that, when I think about a culture of an organization, as we've said before, we always look at the behavior of the people in that organization. But how do we shift a culture that begins to understand that everybody in the organization is responsible for the culture and climate of that organization, right? When do we get off the perimeter and stop blaming central office? When do we stop blaming administration? When do we stop blaming teachers? When do we start blaming parents? How do we begin to understand that until we can find a way to bring people together and understand, listen, hey, we are all going to behave in ways on certain days that do not align with our expectations, that do not align with our values, and we know this. And the reason is because we are human, right? People do get tired, people do get frustrated, people do get elevated. Sometimes people get wounded, they get defensive. Every one of us is vulnerable on any given day. And we're just talking about things that happen within the school environment. We're not even talking about things that happen outside our school environment that can impact the 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 version of ourselves that we bring to work every day, right? We have a person on this thread here this morning, right now. I won't mention the name, but we have a person on this thread this morning who lost a student recently. Do you expect when that happens that a principal can bring their best selves when emotionally they're ripped apart from losing a kid from their school, right? And for all of us who have been in this job long enough, many of us have lost students to accidents, to health reasons, to suicide, to whatever those situations are, and sometimes even more tragic than that. When those things happen, it does affect the community. And so when the culture is healthy, when the culture is built on trust and relationships, then I do believe we can weather anything. We can get through that because the only way to get through it is to lean on the people that you work with every day.
Right.
We spend the majority of our lives in schools. And so, how do we continue to build a community and build a culture where people actually look forward to coming to work every day, know that they feel valued, know that they feel appreciated, know that people will have their back? I mean, that is a safe place because no matter what happens outside the school environment, if you have that type of family atmosphere in your school environment, it allows us to continue to bring whatever we have left that day our very best.
Right.
But one of the things that is so disappointing to me, and the reason I brought this up, is because for those of us who know, in the last couple of weeks, we've had what? National Principals Week, Assistant Principals Week, these celebrations that happen this time of the year when we find the week to celebrate people, right? Instead of just celebrating them all year long. And I get it. We should celebrate them all year long, but I don't have anything against the fact that we have these weeks because they are a reminder and they are to be done intentionally. But we know the best cultures appreciate their people all year long. They don't wait for the one week to say, hey, thank you for what you do, right? That type of thing. But I had someone reach out to me and said, hey, Jimmy, I want to talk to you. How did you handle the year that you became a state award winner and a national award winner? How did you navigate that? How did you work through that? And I'll be really honest, Joe, when they said that to me, it kind of threw me off a little bit because for those people who have ever been some sort of recipient of some sort of recognition, I don't care what the recognition is, teacher of the month, teacher of the year, whatever, even in your own communities, or have had some sort of success where people have applauded you, right? I always find it interesting that you can quickly tell how healthy a culture is by the way that people respond to the winner, to the recipient, right? Think about youth sports teams or college sports teams or NBA, whatever, pro sports teams, it doesn't matter. But how do people respond when an individual is recognized? And so last night, Keelan and I were watching a movie. We were watching for the 100th time the last couple of nights. We watched Good Will Hunting last night. Classic. Love that show. Had to watch it again. Just love the acting in there. Love the storylines and all those types of things. But the night before, we watched Air. And I'm watching, must have been Matt Damon weekend, right? Watching Matt Damon movies.
That's right.
So, but when that monologue scene, when he talks about, Michael, it doesn't matter because this world is going to build you up and build you up and build you up. And that's what we do. We love to build people up. and then we just love to tear them down, right? And it's a reminder again that the conversation basically was about that this administrator was feeling like, what should have been like a highlight, a career changer for me, something that made me feel proud. All of a sudden, I feel like people look at me differently.
Yeah.
They talk to me differently, right? And not in a way that talk to you differently, like, hey, this is awesome, but talk to me differently in the like almost a jealousy. And it's a reminder again that even in our own profession, there is so much petty jealousy going around that it's discouraging because it feels like you don't even want to be recognized. But that's part of what happens in a culture that isn't healthy, right? And so, we see this all the time. We even see this in the speaking world, right? People speak, and then all of a sudden, boom, we want to tear them down, right? Or, people win an award, they want to tear them down. And so anyway, I was thinking about that because I remember, becoming that receiving that recognition. And yet I tell people often it's almost one of the worst things that ever happened to me, right? Because like no one asked for that, right? Like it's not like I send an application on myself or something or whatever happens, and then you go through these different stages. But anyway, I was just thinking about that. And how do we help people find a soft place to land? So if you know someone who has recently been recognized, I would strongly encourage you to send a vote of encouragement, of congratulations. I've always said in a healthy district, when a principal in a district wins a state award or a teacher wins a state award, wouldn't you think that every principal in that district should be reaching out to that district to congratulate them on their own time? But we see that doesn't happen. So anyway, I was thinking about that this morning, just trying to work through that with that individual and reminding them that, hey, you know what? Sometimes it's the worst that's done to us that makes us stronger, right? And so, but the topic was, I was just saying, is how do we help people find a soft place to land? And so that's what I was thinking about.
So two things that kind of hit me. The first one was when you talk about recognition weeks, like we talk about this at the beginning of the years all the time, because every time that we go and speak to a group of people at the beginning of the year, and I would say 95% of the times that we speak, I shouldn't say that. I'm not speaking for you. Every time, 95% of the times that I go into buildings at the beginning of the year, it starts with, let's thank the custodians. Let's make sure that we thank the bus drivers. Let's thank all the people getting the school ready to make it look as beautiful as it could. Let's thank the paraprofessionals for getting everything set to go. And let's make sure that, all that stuff is taken care of. And I always talk about, like, when's the second time that you say thank you? When does the second thank you take place? Because if the second thank you takes place during the recognition week that's assigned by the country or whatever, you've totally missed out on your opportunity to continue momentum moving forward. So I think, and when you wait until the recognition week to recognize, all of a sudden you put yourself in a situation where it doesn't feel nearly as authentic as it could along the way. You still should recognize them during the week that they need to be, that's assigned. But the recognition during that week is going to mean a tremendous amount more if there's continual recognition throughout the course of time. This is not rocket science, Jimmy. This is 101. At the same time, we don't do it. And we don't do it because we get too busy and we go and we go and we go. And we do and we do and we do. And we never take a step back to realize the impact of just keep going and doing, and we move past a lot of it. So when I'm talking to groups now, honestly, I tell them there's no magic bullet to school culture in terms of like bam, like that. The closest thing that I've ever seen when it comes to building culture quickly and consistently is living in a space where you consistently recognize great work, acknowledge great work, and most importantly, to be to build momentum is, do you extend it to people that don't see it? There are a lot of leaders in schools that walk into a second grade classroom and tell a second grade teacher that they're doing great things. And that's great for the two people that are in that space. And it makes that one person feel good and feel valued in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it should happen. But when you extend the conversation to somebody who didn't see the great work happening in second grade, all of a sudden you start a connection, you start a conversation that wasn't happening before. And therefore, you build momentum, not only for the person that's in that room, but now they know that they're going to be talked about too at some point, the person that you're talking to. So when you live in that world where you continuously extend great stories, two things happen. The first thing that happens is that the stories get out, so more people know about it, and it feels better for those people doing it. But the second thing that happens is you, as the leader, feel better. You just do. And I think about it this way. There were places in school that I didn't get to nearly as much as I should have, right? And then when I went into those places, I'd feel nervous going into those places because I wasn't there all the time. And then they're going to be like, well, why are you doing here? What's going on? Like, is something wrong? But here's the thing. If I go into that space and extend a conversation that I heard from somebody else about great things happening in that space, then it's not me going in there and saying, hey, you're doing really great at your job. That's fantastic. It's, you know what? I was talking to Jimmy, and Jimmy was saying the work going on in here was incredible. And here's what he said. What he said was he was watching you guys do this tower building activity, and the look on the kids' faces was just fantastic. And so I wanted to make sure that you got a chance to see that, because not only did he see it, and I'm sure that he said something to you, but he told me about it. And so I had to come down here and take a look at what was going on, right? So it almost takes a little pressure off the leader, in that you're not there to like say, here I am. You're there to say somebody was talking about you. And that's a little different, and it creates momentum, and it takes some of the nerves away, honestly, because you want to be in every place all the time, but you can't. And sometimes I chart it, like you got to chart. For me, I had to chart it. Like, I'm in this spot. This is where I spend most of my time because it's easy for me to get there. This is where I spend none of my time because I never get there. So when I chart it and take a look at it now, if I look at these places that I'm not in nearly as much, then I'm going to the places that I am in, asking questions about those other places. So then when I go into those places, I can have a conversation starter for the people who are in those places. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think with the point you just shared there is really important too, right? Because I heard a couple things, right? That one, there's an intentionality behind the work that we're doing, right? Investing time in people we know is a great culture builder. We know that. Circling back to people after we've had conversations, or circling back to people just to check in on them, we know is a great culture builder. The idea that I love the extension that you're talking about, right? The extending it onto the other individual because you heard it from someone else. So you're being intentional to stop by to share that same information, I think is also very powerful. I think the idea of charting or tracking or somehow monitoring is also really important. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us as leaders. When we do walkthroughs, when we stop in and check on people, when we attend meetings, whatever that is, I think it's really important that we ask our admin assistants, our secretaries, to kind of help us chart those things. Just because there are a lot of inequalities when we're doing that. We don't even recognize that we do have our own biases of where we go to in the school, which classrooms we stop by, which ones sometimes we do avoid sometimes for whatever reason. I mean, the reality of it is we do set the tone, and we're not maybe sometimes being intentional in that. We don't even recognize it. And so we have to somehow monitor ourselves in terms of, are we giving everybody in the organization ample time to have us in front of them, to stop by, to recognize them, to all these types of things are really important. When we look at the situations that happen throughout the building, Joe, I always try to think of ways that I tried to do because people reminded me or taught me, or over time, things that I just learned in terms of how to pour into people. But, strategically, there is a lot of ways to do that. And so one thing I would say right now is, those of us on the show, if there's something that you do that you believe helps people kind of find that soft place to land, please share it here in the chat box so other people can see it. And so I think that's really important. But there are small things that we can do. They don't have to be huge things. But again, notice this all be around investing time in people. So one thing that I know right now when I'm coaching, some of the most effective leaders I know, which seems simple, but it becomes part of their culture. So for example, do you meet weekly with your head custodian? Weekly. Do you do walkthroughs once a month with your head custodian to walk the building to say, hey, what are areas, and show them areas that you're proud of. Show them areas that might be improved. Ask them what things they need for them to do their job at a high level. How often are we meeting with the entire group of custodians? We have a day shift. We have a night shift. Do we meet with them during the transition? Do we go to their place to meet with them? Do we go to the boiler room and sit there and just hang out in a 100-degree temperature boiler room? If your building is still that old, right? Like some of us have been in that building that old. Those are simple things that we can do to show our appreciation, to check in the areas again and go meet them in areas that they perhaps might be cleaning. Can we sometimes do some cleaning ourselves without having to call a custodian to clean it, right? Simple things like that. When was the last time that we jumped on a bus to thank the bus driver in front of the children? When was the last time we took a route with a bus driver? When was the last time we checked in on the bus and said, hey, are you having any issues with any of our students? Is there anything we can do to help to support? When was the last time that we did these things intentionally? And it's just not the principle, but how do we build a community of leaders who's also doing the same thing? Why couldn't we just say to our staff one night, hey, building leadership team, instead of having our regular meeting tonight, what we're all going to do is I've made arrangements for all of us to jump on a bus to take a bus ride with our bus drivers tonight and our kids tonight. How cool would that be if you had 8, 10, 12, 14 teachers going out on a bus route and then coming back and then having some sort of celebration meal with the bus drivers and the teachers and whoever? I mean, they're just things that we can do to be creative. Secretaries. Why do we wait till Secretaries Week? Why can't we just, whenever we want, say, hey, you know what? I want you guys to go out and have some lunch today. When do our secretaries ever get a chance just to connect and talk to one another without the worry? Isn't that awesome if we could get guest teachers, paraprofessionals, our SOR officer, administration, whoever that is, to man the phones for a couple hours and say, secretaries, go enjoy a great lunch. There's so many ways that we can help people find a soft place to land that really helps us elevate our culture to higher levels. And again, it's just thinking in different ways, but it's always about either pouring into people and by giving them your time, or it involves bringing people together to allow them to celebrate and do things that they typically wouldn't see in a school culture on any given day. So anyway, I was just thinking some ways to maybe do that.
Right. I think Lynn had a great point and made a great comment about making sure that we're checking on ourselves too. And it doesn't need to be like a huge event. You just got to make sure that are you willing to check on yourself and see kind of and be honest with yourself about where you are all the time, because a lot of times it's just easy to get to a certain place along the way. So what you're talking about, Jimmy, and I'm not pushing back, but I do want to make sure that we're clear on this, is that I totally believe that letting your secretaries go for lunch and have a good time and like man the office and that kind of thing, I love that, and I think we should do it. But why is that different than the one recognition week that we do? This has to be a consistent thing, doesn't it? Doesn't it have to be something we do on a regular basis that allows it to not be the one-off kind of thing? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Why would we wait to Secretaries Week to do that? Why not just do that sporadically whenever you feel like, hey, we just want to say thank you? And
that's what I mean. And I think that the problem is if you only do it once in December and that's all, even if it's not Secretaries Week, but you only do it once, it's the same effect.
Correct.
Right? It's the same thing. It's got to be something that we do consistently. Having said that, I think there's another piece to this that we really need to consider, and that is, what are we doing to break the script for the organization that allows people to kind of get out of what ends up being, I go here, I go here, I go here. Going out to lunch with your colleagues while the principal covers the office, that's going to break the script. Awesome. So we can do that a couple times, but it breaks the script along the way. Getting on a bus to go on a route breaks the script. Doing it instead of a faculty meeting breaks the script. Like, these are things that if we can get that side of it where we break the script and allow us to see things a little bit differently, because it's not the thing that we always do, everybody's in a better situation. It does keep people on their toes too. Like, what's going to happen next? That's pretty cool. That's kind of a fun thing. You don't want to break the script when it comes to, responding to crisis. You don't want to break the script when it comes to a really tough situation in school. You don't want to do it then. You want to make sure that you're consistent in how you respond in those places, because trust is built in the times that surprise you. But when you're thinking about what we can do to build each other up, breaking the script allows us to see things a little bit differently and creates a story that people talk about beyond the time that the event takes place. So how are we thinking about what it really looks like to break the script, in school? If that means, say, literally walking in and telling people, hey, why don't you just go grab a cup of coffee? I'm going to take your class for a little bit. Do you mind if I read to them, or that kind of thing? I mean, if we're doing that on a consistent basis, that really helps out. And that, you know what else that does? That it's probably, it's an indirect consequence or unintended consequence, I think, of that, is that when we're doing things like that and we're breaking the script along the way, that's providing support to people along the way. So when they're at their breaking point, when they're at the edge, it either takes them longer to get there or they're not as close to the edge. And I'm not explaining that right, but it's like a lot of times I think we wait to support people until they're in dire need of support. Like you walk into a classroom and you see somebody that's just, you know, that they're struggling, and you're like, I can cover your class for 15 minutes. Why don't you just go take a break? And my first thought is that's a really great thing to do. But my second thought is, could we have recognized this 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before, so that person didn't get to that place where they're at their breaking point? Maybe, I don't know. And if we couldn't do it with everybody, maybe we could do it with some people that like closes the gap. And I think just knowing where your people are coming from and how they're feeling along the way, doing these little temperature checks along the way is really helpful. But the temperature checks can't be, I don't think they're like these surveys that you take. I think they're conversations that you have and getting the pulse of your building by making sure that you're walking and connecting and having conversations. I was at my best when I knew what people were doing in every space. I was at my worst when I didn't know what was going on and I felt nervous to go into that area because I didn't know it well enough to have the conversation about what was going on in that area. And let's be very honest, I was in both spots. Like there were sometimes I felt good at it, but there were where I was really, really bad at it.
Yeah, well, the visibility is such a critical component, right? And that's why leading through just by being visible can sometimes, and just in terms of what you're able to see in a building, and that I do think there's a lot of value in that, just so people can see you and that you're around, that you can monitor, that you can observe, that you can see, that you can have conversations and all those types of things. And Joe, you're right, because there are days, right, that there are people who will have a specific incident or situation that puts them in a bad place that day, right? And you'll notice that. Because you'll notice that something seems a little off, right? That they don't seem themselves. And then there's others that continue to build and build and build over time that sometimes we miss. But in fairness, sometimes we don't miss it. We do check in, but these people are just not in a place to talk about it. Maybe it's a privacy matter. Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. Or let's be honest again, because we don't check in enough, because we don't have a relationship that's solid enough, they don't want to talk to us about it. But I think as leaders, you know, the more that we model these types of things and we're more intentional, right? So I'm looking at Tara's comment on here, and Tara, you're amazing. Great job, my friend. But those types of things, it's when we do them and we're part of that, I do believe that it creates an environment where other people feel that they have permission to do the same thing. So the more people that are doing these types of things, I know just from being a high school principal, a lot of my department chairs would come to me just to give me a heads up about one of our teachers. In other words, that teacher would go to one of the colleagues or the department chair to get them to know what was going on. And then, of course, idea would be, hey, just to let you know, I did talk to them. They said it was okay for me to let you know, but they're really struggling right now. And sometimes we need that. We won't always see everything, right? You know, it's especially those of us that are in large buildings, right? When you have 200 people, it's not like every day you can know what everyone's going through on any given day. But it is important to foster the relationships. And that is why it's important, as Carolyn says, why knowing our people is so critical in the work that we do. Just going back and recognizing that those relationships still are always going to be the foundation of everything we do. Okay. Again, my friends, we're talking this morning about helping people find a soft place to land. And so I'm going to let Joe give some final thoughts, and then today I will close it up. But Joe, is there anything else that you want to share that's on your mind that you read in the comment, or something you just want to give some final thoughts as we take off this morning, my friend? Absolutely. Other than it's 32 degrees wherever you're at?
Listen, it's 36.
Oh, 36. My bad. It's still in the 30s. Yuck.
It's balmy, man. It's good.
It's balmy.
Good. I'll tell you this. I was out walking dog this morning and it was 34 degrees. And last night I was at a track meet and it was 40 degrees at like 7 o'clock. And Allie was still pole vaulting last night and it was almost dark. By the time they got to her, it was almost dark. So it was like 40 degrees and little windy and dark. And I was miserable. And this morning it's 32 and the sun is out. I'm thinking, this is not bad. I'll take 32 in the morning as opposed to 41 at night when it's like, it was awful. Anyway, so here's the thing that we want to make sure that I saw Josh put up something about consistency and I want us to be consistent here too. I love talking about stuff. I love connecting. I love having this time with the two of us, Jimmy. I love the people that are willing to come on and jump in and watch. But what are we really doing with it? So what's actionable moving forward? And one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, that we talked about, when you become the extender of great stories in your space, all of a sudden things really start to change because now those great stories find you. When you're talking about a soft place to land, it's easier to find a soft place to land for people if you know where they're starting from and where they're going to land too. So when you start extending stories of things happening in school, all of a sudden we put ourselves in a much different situation. And I'm not just talking about extending stories from the second grade hallway to the fifth grade hallway. When we see second grade teachers doing great things and we know that second grade teacher's connected to somebody outside of the building that doesn't see them do great things, and we reach out to that person to let them know, a spouse, one of their children, their parents, one of their friends, somebody that we know enough to say, hey, I was in their classroom today and they were amazing. I was at the track meet yesterday, and I'm thinking, last year during track meets, I just walked around and told people about things that I saw in school that were amazing, so we could extend those stories to people that don't see them. When you extend stories, you become the connector of great stories, but also when you walk into the spaces of the places that you're extending those stories to, you feel more confident because you have something positive to say, which really closes the gap on A, do you know them as well as you want to know them? And B, you're getting some momentum for them so they feel better about the work that they do. So if we're going to talk about how we help people land in, with these soft landings, it's a lot easier to know where they start. And to know where they start, we need to be able to recognize the great work that they're doing. And if we extend that great work, more people know about the great work that they're doing. And therefore, maybe that landing isn't nearly as hard as it could be if we didn't know where they're at. So this week, what would happen if you extended one story a day? I'm not even talking about 10. What if you do one? Just like one. Like it's an 8-hour day. One. I mean, think about that. And that's 5 stories that you wouldn't have extended last week. That's 5 more people that feel better about being in your building. One a day. And let's just, and honestly, the other thing, I'm taking too much time. I don't care. The other thing, Jimmy, is that not only does that person feel better about the work, but guess who else feels better? You. I mean, why are we denying ourselves some joy? Tell people something great, man. That's all I'm talking about. I'm sorry. That's it.
Well, folks, I am not going to add any more to that because here's the best part. I hope that you continue to join us on the 1 Minute Winnebago or the weekly show on wheels. That is my hope. I cannot believe people chime in on a Saturday morning to join us, Joe. I appreciate you guys. We cannot thank you enough. We will do a temperature check on all of you to make sure you don't have a high fever that's making you feel delirious about why you shut up this morning.
That's right.
But when Joe Sanfilippos kicks it off with a rant and ends with a mini rant, that, my friends, is the best weekly show ever.
I'm sitting here tearing up.
Go ahead, Joe. Keep going, Joe.
I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
Oh,
right
I you're gonna say something.
Starting to get, the sun's coming through this window right now. I'm starting to get too hot. I complain about being cold at 36, sweating. I got this sweatshirt on, though. Look at this hoodie. Check out this hoodie. I mean, is this what I'm talking about, right? It's not the Merchant of Nope, but it's pretty sharp.
Oh, yeah, the Merchant of Nope. What's that say? Every student, every day, whatever it takes. I don't have my glasses on. What's it say?
Don't you ever say that again to me. So the story wins every single time. Oh, I have one more rant. Oh my gosh, Jimmy. I have to say one more thing. I'm sorry. I was with a group this week, and they were talking. They had and this there was a woman that was in this group, and she must have worked with you at some point. She said they were talking to some people, and she saw two people outside, and she goes, "Joe, they just weren't being a champion for each other." I said, "You better be quiet right now." I said, "Don't you ever talk to me like that again." I said, "I swear to all that is holy, if you say they were a merchant of hope, I swear to God I'm leaving. I swear I'll leave." I laughed so hard. I'm like, "Don't you use that language with me. That's like swearing."
Oh my God. God bless all of you. Thank you so much for joining. We will be back next week. We know we've been on a little bit of hiatus, but life, family time, sometimes that takes precedent on the weekend. So
that's right.
But thank you so much. God bless everybody. Go Crickets, Joe. Go Crickets.
Go Crickets.
And remember, my friends, one extension this week. Go be a merchant of hope.
No! Get off of this thing.